2025 was a year of real volatility. Tariffs, market swings, all combined with tech moving faster than most could keep up with.
And the biggest lesson for 2026? It's not just about weathering the storm anymore, because those storms aren't passing.
We're talking to Workiva CEO Julie Iskow about why resilience now requires a mix of stability and agility, and why clarity is the word every leader needs to master this year.
Plus, why boards are moving from quarterly updates to an ongoing dialogue, and how data integrity has shifted from a compliance check to a strategic weapon.
Welcome to the pre-read. Just like the slides you get before a big meeting, the pre-read prepares you, CFOs, and other executives for the next big thing. It's the global podcast where finance, sustainability, audit, and risk teams come together in the C-suite.
If you're making decisions at scale or need to understand the leaders who are, you're in the right place. This is the pre-read, brought to you by Workiva.
I'm Steve Soter, accounting enthusiast and Diet Coke aficionado.
And I'm Alyssa Zucker, sustainability nerd and equal opportunist caffeine addict. Today, we're joined by Julie Iskow, CEO of Workiva. Julie dropped by the pre-read studio to talk about what we learned in 2025 and what the leadership imperative is for the new era. A few themes that stood out to me from that conversation. The first, the new definition for resilience. Why leaders must balance organizational stability with agility in order to adapt in volatile markets. And second, data integrity as strategy. Why treating data as a compliance afterthought is a risk, and how clean, governed data is the ultimate differentiator for both decision-making and AI success. Steve, how about you?
Well, first, this ain't your grandma's boardroom. Board expectations have shifted from passive oversight and quarterly dinners to an ongoing conversation and active strategic partnership. And second is the power of clarity. Julie mentioned and used that word so many times. And in 2026, successful leaders won't try to react to every signal, but they'll instead focus on the few priorities that will truly move the needle. And with that, let's get to our conversation with Julie.
So, Julie, we've heard you say this on earnings calls. We've heard you say this in internal company meetings. And it's no surprise to our listeners, I'm sure, but 2025 was a year of real volatility. We had tariffs, market swings, regulatory shifts, and really rapid tech adoption. So when you look back, what stands out to you as the biggest leadership lesson from the year?
What really stood out to me in 2025, in the midst of all the volatility, is the importance of resilience. And I don't just mean resilient leadership myself. I mean resilient teams, resilient company, and even in our case, Alyssa, the resilient platform. And yeah, from my perspective, that is it. I mean, resilient leadership for a long time meant you got to stay stable, be consistent. You got to, keep operating and delivering predictability. And we use the words of weathering the storm or weathering disruption on the occasion that disruption shows up. But reality today is those storms don't pass, right? And more. So, you mentioned it all, the market volatility, economic uncertainty, et cetera, AI and tech change. That's the environment that changes constant. So you got to be steady and hold your ground, waiting for the storm to pass. But you also need to be agile and adaptable in the midst of really what feels like continuous change. So again, for me, leadership lesson was realizing resilient leadership in companies aren't the ones that really do just stability. They have to do both. They have to stay grounded in what matters, but also able to evolve how they operate, how you go to market, how they support customers who are facing the same pressure. So lots of examples even at Workiva where we did both. Saw the sustainability reporting, right? Regulation shifted, in some cases conflicted, and customers were anxious. And what they needed wasn't, more noise, more options. They really needed some clarity, help them get through, get through it all, defining what matters, what could wait, how to move forward. So yes, it's the agility, but it's also the stability both together. And that, to me, really the biggest leadership lesson is what it is and the change in it and the clarity needed to get through.
I love your anchoring, or maybe your definition of resilience, on those two things, agility with stability, because resilience is a word that you often, especially nowadays, hear kind of used almost interchangeably with sustainability or sustainable. And when I think of sustainable business models, that's really what it is, right? Your ability to operate today without compromising your ability to successfully operate and grow in the future. And that really takes those two pillars of that you mentioned.
Yep, it's steadiness and adaptability. And a lot of it is just creating the clarity when things are uncertain. You got to stay anchored. You stay anchored in your values, in what matters most. And of course, evolve alongside your customers. So yeah, I mean, today resilience is a lot more, so much more than just weathering the volatility. And of course, it's, helping others to do it too. But steady and adaptive.
Julie, so many CFOs cite fragmented data as one of their biggest challenges. We've published research that supports that, particularly around AI. But from your vantage point, not only as a chief executive, but also as you interact with other leaders, how should those leaders think differently about data integrity as they look forward in 2026?
Data integrity has been viewed, something at the end of the process and everything. Like I know that we've all heard it thought about as more like a compliance step. You got to make sure your numbers are good. They tie out, you pass the audit, you file the report. But I think today in 2026, it's right that CFOs are concerned about the fragmented data that you mentioned, and they should be treating data integrity as a strategic capability to drive business performance and outcomes. Because when the data lives in silos and it's disconnected and in systems everywhere, people spend a lot of their time connecting it and reconciling it, and they're making sure it's reliable. And they're not using it. They're questioning the data, whether they can use it or not, whether they can trust it or not. So yes, when you've got that fragmented data, it takes longer to do analyses and reporting and leveraging data to make decisions. Things slow down, and it creates risk and it erodes confidence. So the perspective is changing. I mean, most effective leaders are treating data readiness, data integrity as something you do up front and throughout, right? And you've got to have the processes and the technology for it. And it really is about connecting the data at the source, maintaining the traceability, yes, having clear ownership. So when you need the data to get your questions answered, to make business decisions, the data is available quickly and you can trust it. Listen, AI makes data integrity even more important. Like, data is the differentiator for AI, and bad data means AI risk. Good data, the clean stuff, the connected, governed, audit-ready data, the data you can trust, that means AI can actually be put to work for you, and it's a competitive advantage. So if you want to move with speed, if you want to leverage AI for operational effectiveness, if you want to make sound business decisions, you want to comply with your regulations, then data integrity, being able to trust that data, is absolutely a priority and can be leveraged for a strategic advantage.
Well, it resonates with me, your comment about data not being an afterthought or something that comes at the end of an analysis or a project. By the time you recognize you have a data issue, then it's probably too late, honestly, in this current environment, meaning not too late to try to fix it, but whatever the exercise was that you were doing, that outcome may be in jeopardy if now finally at the end of it, it's like, oh yeah, did we have the right inflows? Did everything really work out the right way?
Exactly.
100%.
Yep.
So thinking about this idea of data integrity, it sounds almost like a silver bullet. That's what you need. That's how you can get AI to work for you. But building that data integrity and the confidence in that data feels like somewhat of an operational kind of muscle that companies need to really build up to de-silo and get that confidence and clarity in good data, regardless of their industry. So if you think about, across any industry, what is the kind of operational muscle for that, or, even related outside of data, that a company really needs to build to maintain that agility that you talked about on the front end for 2026?
I believe for effective companies and leaders, data integrity is table stakes for making decisions effectively and for leveraging AI in a strategic way. When I think about the operational discipline, to answer your question, in fast changing markets, especially around what we focus on, the office of CFO, it does come down to building the few core muscles that you are asking about. And the first one I'll go back to clarity of priorities. And it means aligning cross-functionally. And we do this at Workiva. The CEO, the CFO, the CIO, our CISO, CAO, CRO, they can't operate in silos. And the priorities that are defined, the clarity of those priorities, those cascade down to the teams, and they have to be very clear. You got to be very clear about what's important. And I think about our CFO team, right? Constantly balancing close and compliance and planning and decision support in really volatile markets. So everything can feel urgent. So the muscle is having the discipline, being really clear about what truly matters now, what can wait, and, where teams should spend their time. And that clarity is what enables us to move. And that really enables speed as well. Maybe a second muscle is decision discipline. And back again to the data, you need decisions and that discipline based on trusted data. And agility, of course, the word, right? Agility doesn't mean moving without rigor. It means making decisions faster because you trust the numbers. So when the data is reliable, has integrity, finance leaders can move or pivot with speed and with confidence. Maybe a third one is just adaptability in the operating model. I think this is a muscle. And we do see, CFO orgs evolve around how they work, and they just get tighter cycles, more frequency in the forecast, closer partnership with the business. And that requires the ability to be flexible and agile, without losing control. And yes, of course, auditability. So maybe a last one is just continuous listening, watching, and learning. And I do believe that's a muscle. Best teams are the ones that listen closely, whether it's to each other, to markets, to regulators, to customers, and the business, and just adjusting, before issues show up, because they're hearing things that matter, and they're just proactive instead of reactive, which again, in my mind, is another muscle. So surprise, again, clarity, trusting your data, giving teams confidence to act, really decisively in an environment that just keeps changing.
Julie, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about board expectations. As a chief executive and a member of the board, of course, you are interacting with them a lot, I would assume. And across 2025, there's been questions about risk, about AI, about cybersecurity, general reporting matters, so many things. But I'm wondering, in this current environment, and as you look forward to 2026, what are boards expecting from executives that's meaningfully different than in prior years?
Sure. I mean, I've been on public boards for a while now, several years, so I can see some of the shifts and the changes and patterns and trends. And there's no getting around the fact that investors, regulators are scrutinizing more closely. And that scrutiny, it flows straight to the boardroom. So we've got boards holding executives accountable because they themselves are being held accountable, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure the organization's focused on value creation and shareholder return. And I've noticed boards taking a much more active role in the boardroom. They're almost acting as strategic partners to the leadership team. And, what used to be, and I remember this very well, used to be, once a quarter, a one-day meeting plus committees, mostly management updates. And then we'd all go out for a nice dinner. And now it's really become an ongoing dialogue. There's interim board meetings. There's far more engagement. And it's all the topics you mentioned, right? But it really comes down to boards wanting to manage risk, financial, operational, and legal, governance and compliance, financial stewardship. I mean, there absolutely is a heightened focus on these responsibilities. And of course, that's on top of, leadership oversight and strategic direction. So here come the themes again. They're concerned about data accuracy, data integrity, assurance, transparency. These things are non-negotiable. And I can't think of a boardroom that's not focused on these. And I can't think of a boardroom that's not focused on AI and data now too. And that's definitely a shift. Directors now expect more frequent and regular updates and far greater rigor. And it stems from, the market volatility and the heightened risk environment that we're in. So maintaining stakeholder trust just requires transparency, and management teams now, they're being held to that accountability. It's not enough just to comply with your reporting requirements. We leaders are expected to demonstrate, how data integrity is maintained, how decisions are informed by that, how emerging technologies like AI are being governed, responsibly. But you feel it in the boardroom. In my own boardroom, in boardrooms that I'm in other companies, there is absolutely a trend, and it is different. Director today is different than a director of yesteryear, for sure.
Yeah, it just seems, because we're in a time of such quickly evolving progress and dynamic shifts and volatility across all of the things, whether it's regulation or technology, you name it. And it almost seems as though, from this board perspective, but also the broader market perspective and stakeholder perspective, is that leaders aren't just expected to kind of show the results, show they're trending in the right direction, but there's more of a demand to kind of get a peek under the hood and actually understand, well, how are these decisions being made? How is this actually happening and evolving at your company? And really understanding more of the process and almost like the zeitgeist at the organization, because the result of today, good to know for today, but really what everybody wants to know is like, okay, what's the embedded kind of process and structure that's going to be guiding you through all of these shifts and future state of tomorrow?
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I feel it as an executive, and there's no denying it. And there is this balance that I think boards and other stakeholders have, which is not to micromanage, but to make certain, again, risk management is a big one. And, just making sure, and you can't be in the weeds, but you do have to ensure accountability, understand not just what's happening today, but have confidence about what the future is going to look like, that we have looked around every corner, and we're doing the things that are really going to ensure, again, stakeholder and shareholder value. That is fiduciary responsibility, but responsibility to all stakeholders.
So, Julie, it sounds like you've got a real good head on your shoulders about all of this stuff. We've got a lot of other C-suite leaders on the line listening. If you could maybe give them one piece of advice or guidance on how to prepare for the upcoming year, what would it be?
I've mentioned it as we've been talking today, punchline: clarity. Pace of change isn't slowing down. I mean, you've run through the list, the markets, the regulation, the tech, AI, et cetera, et cetera. Some leaders have this urge, or they want to react to every signal, hedge every risk. And what I've come to realize is that successful leaders don't try to do that. They don't try to do everything. They really get clarity on their priorities, clarity on the decisions that they have to make that really matter, clarity on what they stand for too, right? So clarity is my word for 2026. When you have it, when you have clarity, you can be disciplined about where you spend your time and your attention. Clarity builds confidence, and it's for your teams, and it's for your customers, and for your stakeholders. And it also means being willing to adapt how you operate. So if you're preparing for 2026, My input is pretty simple. Don't just prepare for all that change. Prepare to lead with clarity, because I truly believe that's what allows organizations to stay resilient and agile and focused, no matter what comes, what comes their way. So clarity wins.
Well, excellent advice and a fantastic way to end this conversation. Again, Julie Iskow, CEO of Workiva, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you again to our guest, Julie Iskow, and thank you for listening. We're excited to be back in the new year.
This has been The Pre-Read, brought to you by Workiva, the world's only unified platform for financial reporting, sustainability, audit, and risk. A small update, we'll be hitting your feeds every other week from now on, with the occasional bonus content sprinkled throughout.
And we've got more insights and hot takes coming your way, so be sure to follow or subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your edge.
If you liked the show, leave a review. Send it to someone you love, or just shout it out on your next team call.
We'll see you next time, and until then, go lead it like you mean it.
I'm Alyssa Zucker, and that's Steve Soter. Our lead producer is Mike Ravagno, with audio support from Joseph Machinsky and Drew Hayes.
Pedro Sousa is our graphic designer. Transcripts are created and edited by Courtney Kimsey. And thanks to our digital and social team, Mike Berg, Katie Carr, and Michael Karnowski.